Hey, listeners, and welcome to the You Are Epic podcast. This is where we honour the people who've helped build not just our industry, but our communities. I'm Angela Hucker, and I am so glad that you're here. So, I'm taking the time to sit down with people who've been in construction for years, people who've been through the ups, the downs, and everything in between. You're going to hear real stories of resilience, growth, and moments that shaped who they are. This podcast is for those that want to learn more from people who've been walking this path for some time, and they're helping to lift up others and quietly making a difference along the way. It's also to show you that your journey matters and your voice matters. And in case you've forgotten, you are epic. Let's get into it. Irene Garcia has worked in the construction industry for over 25 years. Irene started her career as an electrical apprentice. Only 1 year after completing her apprenticeship, she transitioned into project management, with her first project as a project manager on a 60-story high rise. Incredible. She was left on her own without the support she needed, so she had to figure out what it takes to be a project manager. And it's with this experience and the many projects that she's delivered since then that became the catalyst for her successful women in construction coaching business. Irene realised that she could be the support for other women that she wished she had at the beginning of her career. Awesome. So we have an awesome guest all the way from the US with us today, and it's such an honour to have you here. So welcome to Irene. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Angela?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. So what we'll do, we'll just start out, Irene, and we'll just find out a little bit about you, how long you've been in the industry, how did you get started in the industry, and what you're currently doing now.
Okay, I've been in the construction industry for almost 26 years. That's when I started my electrical apprenticeship was in 1999.
Wow.
And I went through a 5-year apprenticeship, and about a year after that, I made the transition into estimating and project management upon the recommendation of a general foreman I was working with. Thank goodness for him, because I wasn't sure what my next move was going to be. But he suggested I was something that I should consider, and I did, and I kind of feel the rest is history, right? So it kind of led me to the next role. I started as a junior estimator, which within a year turned into a project manager position, and at which point I was a project manager with on a 60-story high rise with no project management experience.
Wow.
And so that is kind of, I feel like, where everything really started, where I had to figure it out as I went. I didn't have much of a support system at the time in terms of my boss and then people who should have been there to help me. And I had to literally figure it out. And so that experience kind of has fed into everything else that I've done. And so I've certainly have run, many more projects since then. But it's through that experience that I've had so many conversations with other women in the industry, primarily on the general contractor side, and realizing they weren't necessarily thrown onto a 60-story high rise, but they were put into positions that were challenging, and they didn't feel the support. They didn't feel that they were getting paid appropriately, or they didn't know how to navigate like their reviews and in other situations. So I just engaged in conversations, and oftentimes they were over lunch. And I just started mentoring and coaching, because that's what I was driven to do. That's what I was drawn to or towards. And just realizing I loved it. Like after every lunch or dinner or conversation, I was just, like the women, I strongly felt they're getting a lot out of the conversations. I just felt like so like tuned into like what was going on, and realizing like I could help people with my experiences. And so that was probably 10 or so years ago where that really got rolling. And now it's my passion. I started Successful Women in Construction, where I offer a 12-week coaching program for women in construction. And yeah, I've worked on the electrical contractor side, worked my way up to senior project manager. But really, my passion is helping other women in the industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And I think that goes back to the part that you said, like you didn't have that support system and you've realized how important that was to then be able to make sure that other women in the industry do have that support system. So you've kind of set up your own support system for them. So with your 12-week coaching program, what sort of things are you covering off on as part of that in your program?
There's a lot of different things. So I realized that as many obstacles as are in the way for women in construction, it doesn't have to focus on the ones you can't control. So my goal is to focus on like what can we do to change the industry for women that they have control over. And so kind of starting point is just getting clear on what their goals are. So just like do they want to, get to the next level? Do they want to just feel better about where they are right now? And just getting clear about where they are and where they want to go. And then because we don't want to work towards something that isn't really what they want. And once we get clear on that, start working on the confidence piece. And I know my level of confidence from the beginning of that project to the end did not resemble each other.
Mm.
And I went from being, scared of difficult conversations and confrontation and just being unsure of my decision making and all that to just tackling anything. Like there wasn't really anything that was off limits. I was able to have those really tough conversations at the end of the project. Heck, on a physical fear level, I actually got into the window washing rig of that 62-story high rise to adjust light fixtures 800 feet in the air.
Oh my
It
gosh.
didn't fa- and it didn't phase me. Like at no point, like I was never concerned for my safety. Like I was a little concerned about dropping a tool while I was up there, but I wasn't concerned for myself. It felt like just a normal, natural thing to do. And what I've realized though is you have to pick something kind of small and build on it. Like gaining confidence is a muscle, right? So you start
Mm.
pushing yourself a little bit and a little bit more, and you realize, oh, like I can do this. It doesn't have to be that scary, and just building and building and building from there to that it feels like a normal thing to be 800 feet up in the air, and it just but it didn't happen overnight. It
No.
happened over many years, but it's something that you can work on and you can develop. And so those are kind of the two first things, but then we get into all sorts of other things throughout the 12 weeks.
So with that confidence piece, because that's obviously something, that a lot of women, and I'm generally speaking here, but when you're in those male dominated environments, you're not super confident because you're in an environment where you're the minority essentially. So with that, how did you start with building those confidence things with those small steps before you got to 800 foot in the air? Because I mean, I'm not a person that lacks confidence, but I still don't know if I'd go 800 feet in the air, to be honest, window washing. So I'm curious to know, like, what's the little steps that you took? Because, something that you've done might be able to help someone else to go. And you're right, it is those little steps, but what's the little steps that you actually took to start helping build your confidence?
So it started when I was in the field. So as an electrician, there were different fears as an electrician. I had the fear of heights, which I got over. I had the fear of small spaces. I had the fear of being electrocuted. I had all these, they were all physical fears for the most part, right? And so but I told myself at the beginning, I would not let something stop me that like the person next to me would do. If it was a reasonable something or other, I wouldn't let my fear stop me. And so there were times when I'm going up ladders and I'm like, oh gosh, like I'm not so sure about this, but I would take my time, wear the PPE, do all the things I'm supposed to do. But it was a little bit of a stretch, right? Like I didn't start out 800 feet. I started out like 8 feet, and just kind of get a little bit of confidence there, and also I was able to. It was an interesting position being in the field first because I got to really observe the guys. I got to kind of understand how they operated and how they thought and how they interacted. And so it just kind of gave me an edge once I left the field to be able to interact with them on in a meaningful way where I got their trust earlier. And it just kind of it was those little wins that just kind of built my confidence in more in bigger ways.
So did you have any barriers that you faced when you were in the field, like with dealing with the men and stuff like that as well?
I did. It wasn't, I feel like I had a better experience than a lot of women I have spoken with. My very first day as a first year apprentice, I got into the job site and I was told, hey, you're going to work with Joe. I'm like, great, nice to meet you, Joe. And his first words were to me, you don't belong here. And I'm like, oh, didn't really have a comeback to that at that point as a first year apprentice. And so he told me the entire morning all the reasons he didn't think myself and all the other women should be in construction. And there was nothing I could do other than just listen to it. And, but I worked with him, I don't know, 6 or 8 weeks. And then the foreman decided I should do something else. So they gave Joe a second year male apprentice. And after 2 days, he asked for me back.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
So that was a huge win. And the only, I shouldn't say only, but I had another gentleman who I was on a different project. I was probably a second or third year apprentice, and we were paired to work together. And I was warned about him. There's like just kind of watch out for him. I'm like, okay, he seems fine, all that. I didn't know any better. And then on a Friday, we're waiting at the skip to leave for the day, and he makes some comment about beating his wife.
Oh my God.
And and I look at him, I said, not funny, does not fly around me. Like that needs to stop. And everyone that the doors open, thankfully, and everyone exited. And because I made very clear boundaries for myself in the industry. I decided I wouldn't say anything because you can't address everything because
Yeah.
you'd be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There's stuff nonstop. So I decided I would not tolerate anything directed right at me and anything about abusing women. Like if it was anything, anything like that, those were my two lines. I put up with the colorful conversations and the photos or pictures and all that jazz, but like those are my lines, right?
Mm.
So on Monday, the same person retells the joke to someone else within my earshot. And I said, look, the joke didn't get any funnier over the weekend. And he kind of looks at me and he's like, you're in a man's world, like you need to respect that. And I just like I was burning up. I was burning up. And I just, didn't say anything, kept doing my thing. We were moved to a different floor in that building, and he just kept little digs here and there. He was giving me a hard time. And I'm just, I'm an apprentice. I'm just trying to do my job. But then he and some other people were coming in, bringing some light fixtures in. And I don't know where the conversation, how it got started. He made a comment that they're talking about injuries. And he said, yeah, I broke a female apprentice's wrist once because she was talking women's lib. And I was on a ladder, like almost right above him. I wanted to drop the light fixture on him, but I stopped myself. And I was just seething. But thankfully, I was on a project with a general foreman that I could talk to. So the next day, I got there early. I went to the general foreman. I explained the situation. He asked, he's like, do you want off the job? I said, no. I said, I want to keep working. I just want him to leave me alone. He's like, so he's like, you're okay with him on the job? I said, it's fine. I don't want to make a bigger deal out of this than necessary. I said, I just want him to leave me alone. And he's like, consider it done. And it was. I never had to deal with him again.
Awesome. And that wouldn't have been easy to do because you're an apprentice, you're young, male-dominated industry, you're on a
Yeah.
high-rise construction building, and you're copying all this stuff. And to be able to actually have that courage and that strength to do that is really admirable. Because not many women have that ability to be able to do that. So that's a real credit to you. And so this was that would have been the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and women weren't common. Like, I mean, I was in the industry then, women weren't common. I'm not a tradesperson, but like a tradeswoman wasn't common back then in the early 2000s. So that would have been, I can only imagine you've definitely got some strength about you, which is very much to be respected and admired. So thank you for sharing that. So, other than that, as you've moved up through the rank, you touched on about the foreman that you had, who was obviously sounds like a decent person, who's pushed you into more opportunities and was able to manage that situation for you as well. Have you had other good mentors and support people around you on your journey as well who've helped lift you up and move you up through the ranks into the project management roles as well?
Well, I feel like my dad gave me a good foundation. I mean, both my parents gave me a good foundation, but like, before I even walked out into a job site, like my dad told me, like, this is what you need to do. And
Okay.
so like I was able to make a really good first impression. He said like when you're working with someone, like you anticipate what they need, you make sure you get the ladders and gang boxes unlocked. Like so I got on and I immediately made a good impression, right? And so that just kind of sets someone up for success.
Mm.
As I got, into it, like I said, I had some really good foremen that I worked with. I was very fortunate in that, and I was able to work. Like I know a lot of women have they struggle with having to just do, cleanup or, move things around or, just kind of meaningless stuff. Not meaningless, but like ones that aren't getting them further ahead in their training and their career. So I've just been really fortunate to be on crews. I had the full hands-on experience so that once I got into the management side and I was running jobs and communicating with the foreman and the guys, I wasn't asking them to do anything that I hadn't done myself. And I was able to talk intelligently and problem solve and like let's talk through this. And I've always, was very respectful of anything they did, again, having done it myself and having, family who had been there. And that was super helpful. And then my original boss, when I first left the field and was working as an estimator, he gave me a ton of fantastic advice. And like, I was very much a perfectionist and I'm like counting things like 3 and 4 times. I want to be sure the counts are perfect. And he's like, stop it. He's like, just stop it. He's like, trust yourself. He's like, one time is fine. He's like, I trust your counts. He's like, there's no reason you have to spend this much time recounting things. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize he realized what I was doing. And so there were different things like that. And he told me that he's like, as long as you make a decision with the best decision you can with information you have available at the time, you're golden. And that's always been something that I've lived by because a lot of, I mean, project manager, you have to be making decisions all the time. And if you spend 2 days to make a decision, like you can't, like the project's moving faster than that. So he gave me a ton of great advice in the beginning. Our relationship wasn't as positive once I started running projects, but um, a lot of great advice at the beginning.
And so what's some sort of good standout advice that he's given you that, that you're probably now passing on to people as well?
The biggest pieces is like just making good decisions, right? As long as again we have the best information. And anyway, because he said like, to not make a decision is worse than sometimes making the wrong decision.
Mhm.
So, that was a huge piece. And then just and it turns out, didn't know because I didn't have to know it. Like I'm a fantastic problem solver. Give me a problem. I will solve it while I'm sleeping. I will solve it while I'm walking the dog. It just, my brain is constantly looking for solutions. It's like, I can't help it. So like that was, that was a good, I guess, good way to know that I was in the right place because that's just what project managers do all the time.
Yeah, and it's that whole, it's more the, to the point that you said, it's that inaction that causes a lot of issues when people don't make their decisions because it holds everything up then as well. And people are left, without clarity, things aren't being communicated. Everyone's kind of going, well, what do we do now? Simply because someone doesn't make a decision. And, that you're correct that the project moves faster. And if you're not making those decisions, you're actually slowing the project down and causing chaos within the teams and stuff as well. So um, it may not be the right decision, but at least it's a decision so people can move forward and then you can just deal with it from there, sort of thing. So what other things like that you're seeing with the women who you're supporting now, what kind of common issues are you finding that seems to come up regularly in this sort of space?
So what I'm finding regularly is that women are, most of them are going through, construction manager program or engineering or architecture program, and they're getting out on the job site and they are kind of doing what they've always done. Like they're working hard, they're showing up, they're being thorough, they're organized. They're checking all the boxes, right? They're checking all the boxes. Um, but then they wait for the year and they're at the review and they're not getting that pay increase. They're not getting the recognition. They're not getting that raise, promotion, all of that. They assume that doing the things that they've always done and knew to do during school is what's going to get recognized in construction, and it's not the case. So again, chances are it's maybe one woman in a group of 10 or what have you on average. And what they don't realize is the men are having conversations with their bosses on a regular basis. They are making sure everyone knows their accomplishments. So like there's no confusion at review time like that they should be getting that promotion. They
Mm,
are, having like, hey, I want that raise. Like they're having conversations all year long and
mm,
making it clear what they want and what their expectations are before they ever sit down.
mm,
And whereas the woman is just assuming I'm doing the right things, it should be noticed, and it's not.
mm,
And so that seems like I have a lot of women who come to me like after a bad review, not even, I shouldn't say bad review, a disappointing review, where they went in thinking, yeah, I should get the, and project engineer two or whatever the next level is. And they're not, but the guy sitting next to them got it, even though like he's not even, like, even though she was kind of carrying him sometimes, right? Like that
mm,
happens. And because maybe that guy was going for beers or golf or whatever with the management team, and so there's a certain advantage there. And so there's again, we have a natural tendency to connect with people like us, right? And
mm,
so those male bosses are connecting with like the male project engineers and whatnot and promoting them first. Not even necessarily consciously. It's just they're making that connection. They're seeing themselves in this next generation and they're bringing them up quicker and they're not relating to the women so much. And the women aren't making it known what their accomplishments are. So they don't even know that they should get that raise because it just never came up because a woman's not making it known.
And so is that, what that kind of sounds like to me is that the men are more self-advocating for themselves as well, whereas the women aren't.
Yes, 100%.
Are you teaching these women how they can self-advocate a bit more throughout the year and not leave it to a review time?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. One, I mean, certainly, at least on a quarterly basis, sit down with your boss and go over what you've done and what you're doing and what you want. And just set the expectations and don't wait for it all to pile up for a year and then have to wait for like another year and hope they get it right next time, right? So,
Mm,
always, at least quarterly. And again, and have the list just so they know, like, hey, I don't know if you're aware of, but I did X, Y, and Z. And it's okay. It's okay to pat yourself on the back
mm,
certainly, give credit where credit is due. But you need to make sure that it's clear that what your role was in the different projects and why their project did better because of your, contribution and whatnot. And then
mm,
make known what your goals are. So if you want to get to X level, make it known 3 months in advance, 6 months in advance, 9 months, like so that it's not a surprise and they don't have that big disappointment come review time.
mm. And so that's what you've seen and heard the men are doing, but the women aren't doing that. So the men are getting the promotions and the women aren't because they're not laying that runway essentially to let their bosses know about all the stuff they're doing throughout the year. Because it does get to a year and it's like, you and in project world you forget what you've done as well because it moves so dynamically. So
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
that's exactly it. That you kind of what you touched on is you got to write stuff down. So if you had like write down your accomplishments, write down how you stood out, write down that hard conversation, like all the things that you push yourself on or you felt like, oh wow, look what I did. Write it down so you have that to refer to in those conversations.
mm. No, that's awesome. I love that. And I'm glad that they've got you who's helping teach them those skills about how to self-advocate as well, because we need more of that. Because women traditionally, it's like, if there's a job description, for example, and there's 10 things on the criteria of what they need, and if women only have 9 of them, they won't apply. Whereas men will go, oh, I've got 6, I'm good to go. So, you know,
Yes.
and it's that whole difference between, men I guess naturally are just a bit more confident than women, whereas women are like, no, we've got to have everything to be able to get that job. So
Yes.
your dad was, or your family was great support and they gave you good learnings and you've had some good foremans and stuff. What other kind of standout things have you had from your extensive experience in the industry of probably more around the support, where the support has been so vital because you were put into a position where you didn't have the skills when you were first made a project manager necessarily, and that support system around you. So how did you actually, get that support for you because you are and have been the minority, and how that I'm just curious to know how you created a support system for yourself to be able to keep going and then move up into those more senior roles as well, because that wouldn't have been easy by any feat.
No, no, it wasn't. I definitely had a few friends I relied on and called up regular, like, hey, margaritas on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever, just to just to, just to go somewhere and vent and just to sometimes cry because, the day was just so overwhelming. So I definitely had just go-to people on a regular basis that I could turn to. But I also had just two amazing women who weren't in construction, but they were kind of like kind of like almost like a grandmother level, right? Or like a great aunt level. And they just had such great advice and support for me. And, they couldn't exactly relate to the construction piece, but they could relate to doing hard things. And they
Mm,
would, create analogies to, show that they understood what I was going through, but then also just to be a cheerleader. Sometimes we just need to be reminded that we are awesome and
yeah.
that we can do hard things, right? Like when you're feeling, down or you're really struggling, it's like, no, Irene, you got this. Like you got this. Look at how far you've come so far. And we know you can do the rest of the thing. And so like just doing that is huge. Just,
Mm,
being there and being that support. I would have loved to have had a senior woman who had been in my shoes specifically to ask
mm.
like specific questions of. I didn't have that, but I definitely created my support system because I wouldn't have made it otherwise.
Yeah, yeah. So you can, I mean, obviously that's why you've created your system because you understand firsthand from your own experiences how vital that is as well. So, and so what's the sort of, the women that you're dealing with, how much time have they been in the industry so far?
Yeah, on average, it is definitely towards kind of the beginning, like those beginning steps, so that getting
Okay.
confidence, that overcoming those obstacles and such. Also working with women making that transition from the field into the office,
Mm.
a transition I know very well.
Yeah,
And but it turns out though, even more senior people sometimes need that little cheerleader as well. Like
yeah.
when coaching one woman who has worked for the same company for many years and just doesn't have the confidence like, because sometimes you just get comfortable, right? You're where you are, you have your reputation, and you're nervous about having to start over again. So just having the confidence to refine that resume, start putting yourself out there, and just realizing that no, your skills that you've done the last 10, 20, whatever years are super marketable, will land you an incredible opportunity. You just got to kind of package that appropriately. And again, prepare and get ready for the interviews and all of that. And
Mm.
so there's a bit of a range, but yeah, certainly more on the younger, newer project manager side.
Yeah, no, that's awesome because they're the ones who need a lot of support to be able to help elevate them as well. So, with that transition into more senior roles. So, what I'd really love to hear about is your transition from the field to an office role essentially as project manager, because I know with people who I've worked with before where they've gone from a tradesperson into a supervisor role, there's that shift. And it's that shift that you can't then, have the I mean, obviously it's, working with men and stuff, but you then can't go and hang out with the boys and drink beers because then you're one of their supervisors and you're responsible for them essentially. But that shift from going from being a tradesperson and dealing with people to then being a project manager and actually managing people as well. What kind of things did you find along the way with doing that and any issues that you might have experienced?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Well, I think partly partly
Solutions
because
focused.
I didn't transition at the same company I was at. So I
Okay.
think that took that piece out of it. I was at a different company when I became a junior estimator and project manager. So they didn't know me as anyone else.
Uh,
And but I like one of my biggest challenges working in the field were just the lack of proper facilities.
oh.
And just, again, I'm not looking for marble sinks or anything else, but like just something clean and lockable. And it
Mm,
always seemed to be such an issue. Every new job, like my first thing is I'm looking around like, what
mm,
am I going to be dealing with here? And so I started in the office in June. So to have air conditioning and clean facilities was lovely. And I was taken seriously, I felt like on day one. Whereas in the field, like every time I showed up on a new job, I had to prove myself all over again. And I had to work twice as hard and just do all the things. And it was just everything was kind of a battle, it felt like. But in the office, I didn't have that. Like I didn't have to prove myself. I was almost surprised. I was almost surprised how quickly people were like coming to me and saying, "Oh, you're from the field. Maybe you can, offer a different perspective on this." And it was lovely. Like I was involved on these estimates and I was in these estimate reviews and people were listening to my take on things and my opinion. And I was just like, this is
Wow.
fantastic. I had to get all new clothes. I had to, do all that shopping. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm clean at the end of the day. I can actually go places after this. It was nice. Yeah, I mean, there were certainly days when we have a bid due or whatever that I had to stay late. And at the time I was single, it didn't matter so much. So like it just, but I liked it. And I liked there were more social things that I was invited to, and it was nice. It was just, ultimately it turned into something more stressful once I was, on a project and all that. But it was still very much in line with my personality.
Mhm.
And so it was an easy fit.
Mm.
And isn't, but like I know it's not for everyone. Like my sister is an electrician. She started actually a little bit before I did, and she is still an electrician because that's what she loves.
Mm.
She gets up every day and she loves working with the guys and with the tools. And she has found herself a lovely crew with a particular company and she loves it. And I love her for that. Like I love that she loves that. That was not a fit for me long term, just as being a project manager would not be a fit for her. It's just
Mm.
different personality types. I'm the oldest. I think that's part of it, right? I like being in charge. To be the middle
Yeah.
child. So
Yeah.
it's just different personality types, right? I think different people are going to work better with different things. So it's not for everyone, but it was a very natural fit for me.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that. I love that. I love your story, how you've gone from, doing an apprenticeship, being an electrician, doing estimating, and then moving into project management. Like it's actually giving you the whole scope of everything to be able to understand it from what it's like to actually do the work, to estimate it, to then manage it as well. Like I think that's really unique in that regards because not everyone has that ability or has those skills as well. So I think that's incredible. So with the focus to get more women into construction and especially trades, you coming from a trade background as well, what kind of barriers are you seeing that might be prohibiting women from considering construction and coming into the industry, and particularly in those trades roles?
Oh boy, a few
Uh-huh.
different things. So, and this is why my focus is more on the project management end. One, because that is where I've spent most of my career. But two, because a lot of the obstacles women face on that side are more within her control. Like, right, we can work on the confidence, we can work on setting boundaries, we can work on a lot of different things that can really make a difference in her career.
Mm.
Whereas on the field side, not that there isn't coaching that can absolutely make a difference. I know people coaching women in the field, but there's less, I feel, within a woman's control in the field. Like
Mm.
she can't control a hostile environment. She can't control absolutely horrible facilities. She can't control poorly fitting PPE. Like there's a lot of the challenges in the field are less controllable by any one individual woman.
Mm.
And so that is a big piece of my focus. So it's like there's and talking to the Chicago Women in Trades near me, they there's a pre-apprenticeship program, but they also are very much advocates for women in the field. And I had left the field, oh my gosh, 20 years ago. It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
And in that time, like I'm like, oh, I'm sure things are better, right? Like that's gotta be better. No, it's not. Like that's the thing. So like women are still getting harassed. Women are still like if they make a complaint about someone, like again, I was lucky, but oftentimes if a woman makes a complaint, she might be blackballed. Like she might not be able to get another job. And so there's all these different just the way things are set up. The accountability is not there for when someone is treating someone poorly.
Mm.
And so it's a lot more hostile environment and you're oftentimes more isolated. And the repercussions, again, for speaking out are much more severe. So like when I got into the office side, I was like, ooh, I can speak up now. And I felt like I could say things. So when I would hear someone saying something inappropriate or just being an idiot, I called them out.
Yeah.
Like each and every time, like there's a golf outing and someone's like, hike up your skirt, Sally. And I said, oh no, that not here. Like that is a poor choice of language.
Mm.
And I could say that, whereas I couldn't say anything in the field. Like I felt like if I said something, I was a troublemaker and I wouldn't be working. So like I
Mm.
said, I had two very tight reasons that would make me kind of say something or push back. But anything else, like I had times when this shows how long ago this was. I'd have a newspaper, at coffee time and at lunchtime. And I would just be, it wasn't that the newspaper was that interesting, but I would be focusing on those news articles, like my life depended on it, to block out the conversation around me. Because I just didn't want to hear it. And I think sometimes they were saying it just to see, oh, let's see if we can get a reaction out of Irene. They didn't because that was not, I knew better than to be baited. So, and unfortunately, like there's still stupid pictures, on porta-johns and by elevators and all those different things. Like those things are still like there's been measures taken to help, certainly by certain, general contractors and certain owners, but it's not moving the needle fast enough.
Mm-mm.
And so and it's very frustrating because everyone should have an opportunity for a great career.
Mm.
Everyone. And I was good at it. Like it wasn't my true calling by any means, but I was good at it. Like I knew how to put stuff together. I knew how to build things. I knew I could figure out drawings. Like I knew all of that. I figured it out. And now anybody can do that. Like anyone can do that with the proper training. And it shouldn't be out of reach because you're a woman or any other group of person who has a more challenging time in the industry.
Mm. I agree. I agree. So with that, like, what do you think leaders could be doing to help make it better?
There is a union in the suburbs kind of near me, and they have enacted like a higher level harassment training. And from what I understand, they're getting pretty good results from it. So that union requires ongoing training. And part of that is like sexual harassment training. And instead of it, like I know for me and probably most other, at least on the office side, you get like a 45-minute training once a year to check that box and you're on with your day, right? It's not super meaningful. It
Mm.
reminds you of the rules, reminds you can report things. But this is like it's a half day training on a Saturday. And they get really deep on what they're doing and how it affects people. And there's incentives to take it. So mostly, right, you got people wanting to sign up. So there's incentives to take it. And by the end of it, you people can self-designate themselves as a safe person. So
Okay.
like on their hard hat, they'll have some sort of designation on their hard hat. So if someone on the job says having a hard time, they know that is someone that they can go to for
Mm.
help. And so like so there's different programs like that are definitely making a difference.
Mm.
Having there be some level of accountability and a safe place for women to report issues. But that's been super challenging. I feel like there needs to be like something like OSHA where like it's serious, right? Like no one wants to mess around with OSHA. They come out to the job site, make sure everyone is physically safe, and you got to do X, Y, and Z. And I feel if psychological safety was given the priority that physical safety is, we could change this very quickly. And certainly, I'm sure I think I've seen you sharing it on LinkedIn and other people, where like there are more people in construction dying of suicide than from accidents. And so it's even a bigger issue, right? Like it's women are obviously suffering on projects, but it's not just women, it's men as well. Like the climate is not conducive to just a safe psychological environment. And
Mm.
that's a detriment to everyone.
So what do you think? I mean, other than the sexual harassment, obviously, but what do you think causes that of not making it psychologically safe?
What I believe one of the biggest issues for underlining ongoing issues in construction is that the people are continuously working themselves out of a job. Always. That's the nature of construction, right? So you have super hard, you got really tough conditions, really tough physical conditions oftentimes. You have really stressful conditions because oh my gosh, the concrete pour is happening tomorrow and we haven't finished piping the deck, right? All those things. So like you have like it's like a pressure cooker where it's this stress and this stress, and then hurry up and get it done, but you don't know if there's a place for you to go when you're done. And the office generally does not communicate very well with the field to make sure that the crews know that there is a place for them to go. Like make sure that people know, like, yeah, finish this. Like we have this job over here down the street, or there has to be some sort of safety net so people don't feel they're working themselves off a cliff. I mean, I was on more than one project where the guys are like, oh, slow down, we're getting to the end. We don't want to work ourselves out of a job. Like that's a real fear.
Mm,
And so if you have all these pressure cooker situations that are creating a super stressful environment, and then you introduce someone who people might not think is up to the job, right? If a woman walks on and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like, I've got this to get done and I've got this to worry about. I don't want to have to worry about her. Like she might get hurt or she might do this, or like they have like these, right, these preconceived notions of what this woman on the job site means to them.
mm,
Likely it's not true. Like if they would just have the conversation and give her the benefit of the doubt, she can prove just like I did that she's more than capable of doing it. But like if you have the foreman who is run, all these deadlines, like they're just gonna put, oh, you know what? You get the material orders, get the coffee for the guys, sweep the floor. Like they don't have time to like assess the situation for real. Like they're
mm,
making their assumptions based on whatever information they think they have at the time, and it's not giving the woman or whomever else the benefit of the doubt that they can do more because they don't have time. I think a
mm,
lot of the times, right? And if you're thinking like I'm going to be out of a job, I'm going to be out of a job, like I'm going to watch out for Bob over here, not Lucy over here, right? Like you're going to again, that's that default. You're going to look out for the person who looks like you.
mm.
That this is my brother, right? Like I'm going to make sure that we have each other's backs. Like I don't know what she thinks she's doing here. She probably doesn't have family to support. Like so it's this compounded issue that I think if the guys in general or just crews on job sites just felt safe, that they knew where they were going, that the work was continuous, that they had more support from the field or the office, that there was just better communication all around, then maybe we could take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Maybe we wouldn't have to, we could take a little bit of the pressure off, right? And we could have just a better environment where people actually have the opportunity to thrive rather than just get by.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, it is that pressure cooker environment. Like as soon as you get awarded that contract, the pressure is on because you've got that budget, you've got that schedule, you've got LDs hanging over your head. So you're on, and there's no taking your foot off the pedal until you're done. So with that, what do you think, with your experience, because you've obviously with coming from the field and now into the project management role, what do you think like the middle level managers, so people who are like the supervisors or the foremans, we call them supervisors, you call them foremans, the foremans, the project managers, what do you think they could do to help maybe with that pressure cooker environment?
I think they need more training. I think that's a big piece of it. So like people training, right? Because I've heard too many stories of great journeymen who are promoted to foreman because he's a great journeyman, right? But like being a great journeyman does not mean being a great foreman. And a big piece of being a foreman or a supervisor is understanding people and being able to motivate people and people feeling good about their jobs, right? They don't naturally have that ability to do that. And if they have people, in the office, yelling at them and putting the pressure on, like they're going to go into default mode on how they do things. And so if they have proper training, like, supervisor training, like this is how you can run a crew, this is how you handle difficult situations, this is how like there's a whole bunch of things that they're not equipped to handle.
Mm,
They're equipped to handle like how do we pipe from here to there? They're
mm,
not equipped to handle like what happens when Bob is clearly depressed or whatever the situation is, right? Like they don't know how to deal with those personal issues that show up on a job. And
mm,
as much as like, construction is about building buildings and roads and whatever, it's about people first. Like people are the ones getting those things done. But we
mm,
don't know how to interact or putting people in places to supervise other people who don't know how to supervise people. They just know how to get the work done. Like they can read the blueprints, lay things out. They don't know how to really properly teach people to get the work done in a way that like everyone's going to feel good about.
Mhm. So it is that human element and bringing that human element into those roles and having those, I call them the human skills. Like, for me, what kind, I have a lot of human skills that I think are important for the industry. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are about what human skills you think are important.
Yes. So I've learned that being right is overrated. And I've had one particular instance, and I keep this in mind all the time because the egos can get riled up pretty quickly in construction,
Mm,
right? Like big time. And
mm,
I'm just as guilty as everyone else. Like I'm not trying to say that I'm not, but I'm aware of it, right? I'm aware of, ooh, that's coming from my ego place, not my
mm,
place of like, let's make a good decision place. That's like I'm getting defensive or like I'm reacting for whatever reason. And so when I was managing like a $10 million hotel renovation and expansion, I had a general foreman who he and I just didn't see eye to eye. And we would butt heads and we butted heads and we butted heads. And so in each time, like the situation escalated. So like I responded to what he did, escalating it, then he escalated it further, and it's just going, it's just getting worse, right? And I'm walking to the job site and I'm praying. I'm praying at this point. I said, please show me another way. Like this can't, I know this isn't working. Like I have to, I'm thinking like I have to be the bigger person. Like I'm the project manager. I'm overseeing this project. Like I have to be the role model for how we do things. And so it occurred to me that I needed to de-escalate, that was the only answer. That if I continued doing what I was doing, it was going to get worse. It was going to get worse. I was going to continue to have a stomachache every morning on the way to the job site, which I didn't want. And so I got to the job site trailer and I said, "Hey, how about we do things differently?" And I said, so I made some concessions. I asked a few things from him, and I said, "I don't think either one of us wants to continue doing things this way. I would like to do them differently. If you're open to, to kind of putting things to the side and forging a path forward together, that's what I would like to do." And
mm,
he was all in. And, but I had I had to be the person who initiated that exchange.
mm,
And so I think I've seen that kind of over and over again. Like I know, again, human nature, like we want to be right, especially but sometimes there's more important things than being right. Like I could have been right all day long and had a miserable project and just
mm,
had miserable experience. And that's my point of view, right? Like I'm sure he felt he was as right as I felt that I was right. But I had to be willing to put that aside, put my ego aside, and realize that that's not going to have a great result. And so, like, I feel like my 25-year career has been like just studying people and
mm,
interactions and seeing like what motivates, what demotivates. And then I'm kind of amazed when I see people like I can see it, like I can see it coming, like, nope, nope, that's not going to get the reaction you think it will. And just watching like just the train going off the cliff like I don't know if not everyone's taking the same mental notes I am as we're going along. Like I'm trying to learn because I want to be a better person. I want to have better interactions with people, and I can see a lot of other people aren't quite picking it up at the same rate. And
mm.
so that, I mean, to me it's really that's just so important.
Yeah, so those human skills are really important because you're right, it is about our people. So we've got to be able to have those skills to be able to interact and support our people fully so they can thrive. What's some three quick points that you've got that would help anyone listening to this that they could actually do for themselves to help themselves so they could actually thrive a little bit better in the industry?
Great question. So I've touched on a couple things. One, again, just being, very clear about what you want, because I found that people were convinced they wanted, an exec level position. And once they got really clear on what they wanted, it turns out, I actually think I want to take a step back. So you want to, again, make sure that your actions are in line with your true desires. And you're going to get a lot farther that way. And then and this is probably my biggest lesson learned from my first project is that, I'm learning for myself on that project, but for other people, is that we're all so much more capable than we give ourselves credit for, or that we think we are. And again, don't recommend anyone like starting out in a 60-story high rise to find out what they're capable of. But I have no doubt that other people, in that position would also realize, oh, this is really hard. This isn't how I want to do it. But my gosh, like I can do this. Like I can figure this out. I can, put the pieces together. I can call the people and get answers and I can use my resources and, and just trust yourself, right? So I mean that's a huge piece. It's just again realizing how much more capable you are than you realize.
Mm,
And then just, be bold in what you're doing.
mm,
So if it's, I was talking to someone and, she was 20 years in an assistant project manager role and she really wanted to be a project manager. And I'm like, you've been with this company for 20 years. Like, I think you may have to go somewhere else.
yeah.
And, but I mean, don't hold yourself back. Like, if that is your heart's desire to be a project manager, then don't let anyone stop you. And,
Mm,
and don't let yourself stop you. Because a lot of times, like, we talk ourselves out of things. Oh, we're not ready, or I'll try it, in a few years or whatever. Like, do it. Like, take the chance. Like, you're going to regret it later if you don't. If you mess up, you mess up. Like that was one of the things I guess one of my fears I got over on that high rise is fear of failure, right? Like I think
mm,
so many of us are like, oh my gosh, what if I fail? What if this project's horrible? What if like I had to get over that project during that project because like in some ways I succeeded on it, I feel, but it failed in other ways very miserably. And and I had to be okay with that. Like I had to like stay on a project that wasn't making money and despite every effort that I put into it, it wasn't set up properly. And so like I had to like live with that uncomfortable feeling like, oh my gosh, like this in my mind is a failure, right? And it was a horrible feeling. But like once I got to the other side, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still alive. Like I'm still I'm still here. Like I'm employed. I still have my home. Like
yeah.
just like the idea of this thing I've given so much weight to, and it wasn't real. And so yeah, all of those things like it's just it just kind of one thing rolls into another, but it's so much of what stops us is what's in our own head. So we have to like label those things like this is not real. That's this is in my imagination. This is something I've carried from childhood because, Joey down the block told me that, I couldn't do something or whatever it is. Like so much of our story is not real. And,
Mm,
and but we get to create the story that we want. If we want to be
mm,
the project manager, if we want to be the executive, like do it. Like,
mm.
like if you're serious about it, if that's what you're meant to do, you will find a way, but you
Mm.
have to believe you can.
Mm. I love that. And that's so true because the story you tell yourself is the story of your life. And we all have the opportunity to be the author of our own book. So, we get to write the chapters. It's up to us as to what the words are on those pages. So, and what each chapter is. And just because you're in one chapter doesn't mean that's the chapter for the rest of your life as well. That, or that you're stuck on that page. Turn the page, write a new page, write a new chapter. So, um, and there's so many things that do carry over from our childhoods and, things that have been said to us growing up. And, Johnny down the street said this when you were 6 years old, and it's something that's just stayed imprinted in your head and how that actually then ends up creating this belief system and, even biases about things as well. So, and how that, can have such a impact on your life when you grow up and you're an adult and how you interact with the world and people as well. So, in the US, like I know that you're having obviously I'm not going to go political, but I know you're having some very interesting times at the moment. So
Interesting is one word for it.
yeah. And do you see how's that impacting the construction industry as a whole?
Um, I think it's too early to tell. I mean, I had talked to people even in the past year who there seemed to be this anticipation of a recession.
Mm,
And, oh, we're not going to hire, we're not doing this because, we think there's going to be a recession. I said, you do realize that creates a recession. Like if you start pulling back, not hiring, not building, not doing things, that literally creates it. But okay. So it's too early. Like I haven't been impacted by it. Like companies that I'm talking to have not been impacted. Yeah, right. But there's this whole level of just uncertainty and fear of like, what do all these things mean? Like, there's all these cuts, federally, right? And like there's all this federal work that's going on. Like, does that impact? Is that going to be impacted? Like, and so I haven't seen it. I haven't heard from other people who have seen it, but it seems unlikely it won't impact construction. And construction is can be kind of volatile in that way. But I haven't seen anything yet.
And it's probably a bit too early to tell. I mean, we're only February and this all only has come about in the last 3 to 4 weeks. So the long-term effects won't be felt for some time yet, I imagine. So yeah, but definitely interesting times with what's happening in the US at the moment. So I just, on that note, I just sort of ask, have you got any parting comments, words of wisdom, maybe a closing statement that, you might like to share as a sign off from Irene?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna partly repeat what I said earlier, but like I will take a step back. So we're told all these things about our limitations or obstacles of women in construction, right? And to a point, they're real, right? There's different glass ceilings or harassment on job sites, or there's definitely real challenges. I'm not saying there's not, but like don't focus on that. If I focus on that, I would not be where I am today.
Mm.
I focus on what I could do, what I was capable of, and kept pushing forward. And it turned out that a lot of that I didn't experience myself. And I think partly is because I approach things in just a positive way. And I'm like, I'm gonna just do the things and I'm gonna listen to my kind of my inner knowing, my intuition. That's certainly a fantastic guide. And
Mm.
so don't let again, if you're a woman considering construction, like don't let all the hearsay stop you if this is something that interests you. It's a
Yeah.
great career. It's I have a lovely house with my family because of this industry, and
Mm.
I've empowered to do so many things, outside of work because of what I do at work and going to Home Depot or Lowe's and going to, buy tools, and the guys were like, assume that I don't know what I'm doing, and I said, I know more than you do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, I am a licensed electrician. So so don't let those things that you hear stop you if this is something that is your heart's desire.
I love that. I love that. And thank you so much for what you're doing in this space to help support those women who are, wanting to move into project managers role and, the young women and stuff and starting their career in the industry or, early stages in the industry as well, because it's so vital that we have women like you who are visible female leaders to help show women it is possible. So thank you for everything that you're doing to be one of those visible female leaders. It's been a real honor to have you talk to us today. So really appreciate it. Thank you, Irene.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. I hope this conversation gave you something that you can take with you, whether it be a little bit of insight, inspiration, or maybe just a reminder that you're not alone. If it resonated with you, please share because we're better when we help build each other up. And remember that your experience, your story, and your journey, it all matters more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay connected, and never forget you are epic.